Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll receive insight, inspiration, and advice for aligning your mind, body, and spirit to achieve a fulfilled life and live your purpose with me, your host, Jennifer Spohr. You'll also hear from other leaders who share their inspirational stories and wisdom in living fulfilled, on purpose, and making an impact. If you're a mission-driven leader and you're passionate about learning and integrating all the things that empower you to live and lead a fulfilled, purpose-led life, this is the show for you. Hey everyone, I'm really excited to welcome as guests to the show today, Beth and Greg Langston. For the last 20 years, Beth and Greg have empowered students to master their self-discovery, allowing them to successfully activate their life's purpose. Beth, who graduated from Purdue University in education, has guided hundreds of high school students worldwide to navigate the dreaded college applications essay process with tremendous success. Greg has also graduated from Purdue's Cranner School of Business. Greg pursued an international business career, which allowed him to mentor hundreds of young professionals while leading businesses over $1 billion and working in 65 countries. By the time their kids were 13, they had been to 12 schools and lived in 5 countries. We're so glad to have Beth and Greg here with us today. Welcome. I'm so just really overjoyed to have you guys here.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure. And the work that you guys do is so needed. I'd love to just kind of kick off the conversation by learning more about what inspired you, what led you to this work.
Well, as you said, we raised our kids overseas for the most part. And so when our son was 13, yes, he had been to 12 different schools in 5 different countries. So it was a great experience. I mean, they learned foreign language, which is we should be teaching our kids earlier on in the United States. They gained a great appreciation for many other cultures. And in fact, when we lived in Singapore, the American school there had 76 nationalities represented in K through 12. Yeah, it was so cool. So cool. So they had some amazing educational experiences, but we felt that we needed to get them back to the States. Overseas, we did some homeschooling. We had a school in our home for other expatriate students also when we felt the education wasn't quite there in a certain country. So we've had the whole gamut, but we knew they were going to get ready to prepare for college application process. So we wanted to get back to the States so we could find opportunities for them to learn self-discovery about their strengths and weaknesses. But when we got to the States, there weren't any opportunities. They weren't teaching our kids these valuable lessons and tools that they needed in order to succeed in life and be successful in that application process. On the other hand, Greg, as an executive, he was running large corporations and he had been provided with hours of executive training and coaching to equip him with skills and the assessments that improved his performance as a leader. And he kept saying, why aren't they teaching this to the kids in high school? Why aren't they getting those assessments so they can learn early? So with Greg's executive training and my education background, we started developing tools for our own kids. They were our guinea pigs. So, and then their friends became our guinea pigs also with workshops. And it developed to workshops in the area. And we were just experiencing great success with these students as they learned more about themselves.
And this was 20 years ago. And so we would try some things with our kids and they would say, Mom or Dad, doesn't make sense, or, well, that's great. How can we do this differently? And so we kind of worked through that process. And over the ensuing 20 years, we are now to the point where we are doing it all online as well as we do workshops. But it's been outstanding to see some of the results that the kids who've gone through the program have been able to achieve.
Yeah, what are some of the most significant results that you've seen?
Well, first and foremost, our own 2 kids, our son,
right.
he went, we didn't damage him too badly. He went to Wharton School of Business, then he went to Goldman Sachs. Then he went into the financial field and has done extremely successfully. Our daughter was an academic athlete. She was a captain of her volleyball team at Michigan State. She turned professional. She was on the AVP tour, toured internationally, and then subsequently became a medical device representative. And so we've got kids that have done extremely well. We have students who went through the program. Just spoke to one of them last week, Olti, who was named one of the top 20 under 40 in Miami. And he went through the program 20 years ago. So we've dealt with lots of people, and what the kids get is they get the transformation of clarity and knowing what their values and strengths and weaknesses are, to allow them to then pick a major effectively. They gain the confidence to clearly articulate, both verbally through an elevator speech and through their essays, what they are, who they are, what they want to do. And they also have a sense of control in that they have actionable plans and goals that they've established in the program.
That's amazing. Why do you think there's such a gap that exists in our current public school systems today? Because that really isn't taught mainstream.
No. Well, and the thing is, maybe the guidance counselors would be the ones to teach it, and they are overworked. There are a national average of 424 students per one guidance counselor, and the recommended average is 240 around then. In California, we have 900 for one counselor.
There's no way they can do that.
Yeah, they
No.
just cannot get it done. So that's part of the problem. And I don't know, I don't know why we haven't thought of this earlier in America to start teaching our kids these things at a young age, just like foreign language, same thing. We need to be teaching them at a young age. When kids are young, they're uninhibited and we can find their strengths. We always said as parents, it's our job to find what our children are good at and help them develop that and to make a plan,
I think there's a belief that in some schools they give a strengths assessment or a skills assessment, and they go through and they go on a given day and they say, okay, well, I'm supposed to be a communication major. And then that's what they go with. There's no real foundation of discovery to figure out what the student really is good at. And that's what we do, is we embrace the student where they are, and we take them on this journey where they themselves master their self-discovery. We're not telling them like, you've got to do this or you've got to do that. They basically go through a process to determine all the things that we just mentioned.
I believe that, our purpose, right? It's not really just a thing. It's really about living purposefully, that we're here to learn. And it's also all about the journey. And that people that are that young, right? There's a lot in life that they have yet to experience. So what is your advice for them to continue to embrace the changes that they're experiencing and how that can impact what they've initially established to be, their values? Does that make sense?
It certainly does.
Yeah.
And you mentioned values, and I'm glad that you said that, because there are no programs aside from what I've seen that you do. No one teaches values and core beliefs to kids. They basically say, this is what you need to learn academically, and this is a skill that you're interested in, so you have to go do that. Excuse me. What we do with our program is we start with the core values, and we identify what those are. We help them to define what their primary values are and then what their core values are. And if I can, let me just describe it. Imagine a tree with a very strong root system. The root system that's embedded in the ground are your values. And so the trunk is your purpose, and the branches are your goals and your objectives and the fruit of all your efforts. And so in life, kids and all of us are going to have the challenges of storms that push against the tree. If we have a strong foundation, if our values are strong, if our core beliefs are strong and they're embedded in the earth, they're not going to be toppled over. If, however, they aren't strong, then they are going to get toppled over. And so we explain that to the students. They select, through our program, they select their 7 primary values. They then determine their 3 core values, And then what we do is we take them through a process to say, let's assume your top value is love and you have an estranged relationship with your parents. What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to start doing? And what are you going to continue doing to improve that situation with your parents? And then we take them through a gating process where they basically test those values in life. And so the benefit for the student and for the parents is the student's going to make a decision based upon their core values when their parents or their guardian is not there. And that's one of the objectives of the program. And so we start there.
I love that you brought that up just now. I think you're reading my mind, because I was going to ask you the question, because often, obviously, parents are a huge influence in a child's life. And I was going to ask you to speak more to, how in the work that you're doing, how they're being encouraged to develop themselves more from an independent standpoint, right? Like discovering what their individual values are versus what their parents might be.
Absolutely. And, that all leads into purpose, which was your initial question. Yeah. And an interesting statistic is that 87% of people 16 to 29 do not know what their meaning is or their purpose, 87%. And so you wonder, why is it taking 60% of college students 6 years to get through college? Why? Because they're changing majors 3 times. Why are so many people leaving school and coming back and living in their homes? Because they don't know what they want to do. And so that's why we're excited about sharing the program with people and encouraging them to go through the process, because as they go through the process and they work with an accountability partner, this is something that's very important. They pick their accountability partner who will work through the process with them. And we all know that when we say we're going to do something and we share it with others, whether I'm going to lose 5 pounds or I'm going to run a 10K, the likelihood of success is 65%. If you pick an accountability partner to help, just like you work with your clients as their accountability partner, the results, the probability of success goes to 95%. And so that's part of the program as well.
At what age do you start working with children typically?
We recommend sophomore, juniors is the wheelhouse. In other words, 15, 16, 17. And we work with kids that are seniors. And we also work with people that are in college because they haven't figured it out yet either.
Right.
Yeah. And we do find that most families don't know that you need to start early. They think, for the application process anyway, they think, oh, the school's going to handle it. And they're going to teach them everything they need to know to apply when they're seniors. And it's not true. We need to catch them early to start this little part of it that is the big discovery part for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the reality is, and you were alluding to this earlier when you referenced how overworked the guidance counselors are. In reality, the schools are stretched. Right?
Yeah.
It's probably all the teachers can do on most days just to get through the curriculum, with the number of students that they have. So, yeah.
Right. And the student really has to be a squeaky wheel to get the job done, to get the attention that they might need. I always tell my kids, if you need the help, you go demand it with your counselor, because that's why they're there. But if they don't know you need the help, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another value of the self-discovery is we all know that kids get stressed out and, they're overscheduled and they got too many things to do, particularly when they're in high school and particularly when they get to be their senior year. By going through the self-discovery, they can determine more clearly, hey, listen, what is it that is really important to me? What is my why? Because what they are is they're a student. How they do it is they get good grades and they study, or they don't, and the consequences are the grades. But why they do it is important, because that's going to propel them into college or into a vocation. Some students go through this process and find out that college is not the right fit for them. And what a wonderful thing to be able to do that, because you can save yourself a tremendous amount of money, because you might take a gap year. You might go into become in a vocation that really jazzes you. That's a fantastic result, which you save yourself and your parents a tremendous amount of money, by not going to a school that's going to cost you $50,000 a year, accompanied with the debt, and a new job that you can't pay for that debt. So there are a tremendous amount of benefits of going through the program and learning these things early.
I really just, there really aren't words for just how passionate I am and how important I think your work is. You know, that was actually the case for me, but I figured it out on my own at 19. You know, I had started a career in retail and I actually really enjoyed it. And I was, I mean, not lucky, but just blessed to at such an early age kind of get into what I really enjoyed doing, and to be able to coach and mentor other people and end up building a really successful career and then a business from that. I love that you bring that up, because college is a great fit for some people, but it's not for other people. And it's so important for them to be clear on, like you said, their why and what they're feeling called to do versus what other people are, you know, telling them to do. And that's another thing that I feel like, it's been a while since I've been in school, but you know, it's another thing that really isn't talked about a whole lot in schools today, is the importance of knowing what your why is. It's kind of like, you know, just all of this information is put out there and everyone's kind of conforming to the same thing, whether it's a fit for them or not. And I feel like it's not setting them up for success in life.
Their why is their social media feed, and that is something that is very bad. And that's something that, as part of the process, and if you like, I can describe it very quickly how the process works. Because what we do is we highlight not only what your aspirational goals are, but then we have the students say, what are some things that, knowing that this is what I really want, what are some things that I'm doing that are detracting from that? And universally,
it's not getting enough sleep and too much time on social media. And they'll say, I get in bed at night and I just scroll too long. I'm like, well, that's probably why you're not getting enough sleep, right?
But basically, if I can, in just a minute or less, what we do is we take them through a 3-phase process, which begins with discovery, where they determine their values, as we talked about. They then take a 360 assessment, which is part of what you do in corporate America or in the world. Rather than just go and fill out one questionnaire, you fill out, we send, based upon the student's selection, 8 trusted advisors, whether it be their parents, guardian, a favorite teacher, a coach, if they're working, a boss, grandparents, who are invested in them as individuals. We send them a confidential survey that identifies what are this person's strengths, what are their weaknesses, how do they add value to others, what 3 majors do each one of you think, not 1, not 2, but 3 majors you think that this student would be very good at, what are some things this person should not do, and they get back a confidential summary that has 200 data points of information from people that care about them to say, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, this is how you add value, this is what you should possibly consider studying. And so they really get a holistic view back from people that really know them, not a computer, that tells them what they should do. Then they go and they take an assessment, a Kolbe assessment, which is a cognitive assessment, which tells you what are you naturally, instinctively going to do in a problem-solving scenario. Then, armed with that information, we help them to craft what we call your DNA statement, your distinct natural ability statement. And this is a summary of all the findings that you had, so that when a student is placed, and kids are nervous, right? And they're not sure what they're supposed to do. So when they're placed in a situation and they say, do you want to go into this project? They can look at their DNA statement and say, I'm a problem solver, I'm an analytical thinker, and but my communication skills are not the ones. I won't volunteer for the communication skills, but I'll do the analytical part of this process. So they go into the project knowing that they're going to be successful at that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
So then what they do is they develop their purpose statement as a result of that, and that's their why statement. And they establish aspirational goals in 4 different areas: health, wealth, wisdom, and relationships. So that's all their discovery. They then determine, okay, based on all that, these are my 5-year goals to support that. These are my 1-year goals in school. These are what I'm going to do daily. And with that, I'm going to pick 3 majors. These are my core majors, because lots of kids freak out when they say, you got to pick one major, but which one do I do? No, you pick 3. You pick your primary major, you pick a minor, and one that you can take or not. And armed with that, you then go and you say, okay, this is my compelling elevator speech. It's a 45-second to 1-minute elevator speech that you can communicate and articulate very clearly. And you put that into your application essay. And the most important part of this whole process is you've been working with your accountability partner throughout this whole process. But at the very end, what the student does is they have a report out meeting with their parents and their accountability partner. Because how many times do parents send kids to school or to an event and you say, how was it? And they go, fine, or you don't even get an answer. In this case, what they do is they say, Mom and Dad, these are my values and why they're important. These are my strengths and weaknesses based upon all the feedback that I got. These are my goals for my aspirational goals for my life. These are my 5 one-year goals. These are the majors I'm going to go, and this is what I want to study. And the parents go, oh my goodness.
It's so rewarding for everyone in the room, the parents, the student, us, the accountability partner. It's amazing because we see these kids try to take control and have clarity in what they're going to do. And the parents are convinced. And the parents always say, why didn't we have this 20 years ago? I would have liked to have had this.
Right? I mean, it seems so obvious,
Yeah.
And it's all self-paced, and the videos are in 2.5-minute increments. It's not a 1-hour presentation. It's 2.5 minutes. It's mobile ready, and it goes with the interactive workbooks so that they can fill the information out.
I think it's fantastic that you've even, to the point of having, what they're watching or listening to be only 2.5 minutes, because I feel like the retention is a lot higher.
Oh yeah, because let's face it, your audience, some of these teens have the attention span of a goldfish. And so, and their parents as well. We all do in today's society.
Right.
You don't have time to sit down and look at something for an hour. And so we purposely did this in a way that's in 2.5 minutes on average increments. Yeah,
I love that. I know. Yeah, unless I'm already kind of following someone at an in-depth level, I won't watch anything as an adult that's over a couple of minutes, because I'm being very strategic in terms of where my time is going. So I think it's awesome that you guys do that. What role do you feel mindfulness plays in regard to children, developing and gaining clarity and confidence on their path? Because that's another component that I feel is missing today.
You want to answer that? My thought is that if you are clear on your values and you're clear on your purpose and you have goals, aspirational goals, and your actions are supporting what you have established, you are therefore being mindful in everything that you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Because you're driving alignment between what you value, what you aspire to do, and what are you doing today in an action-based, and I know you're all about action, because you mentioned that in your podcast. What are you doing about it? If this is what you are, this is what you want to do. So what are you doing today to get closer to that aspirational goal?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to take physical action in order to achieve what we want. In closing, is there anything else that you guys are feeling guided to share?
Well, we also teach them, I don't think you mentioned that, how to develop a growth mindset, which is very important because they do get a lot of social media feedback and they're comparing themselves to the rest of the world. And we always say you can't measure yourself versus perfection, what they think is perfection. Because explain perfection.
Yeah, perfection. We've all been in airplanes, not so much recently, but it's like looking out the window and you see the horizon. And as you're flying towards the horizon, as you get closer to the horizon, it keeps going away. That's a mental construct that you're never going to accomplish, just like social media. And so what we teach our students, it's better to look at what did you accomplish yesterday in one of your health, wealth, wisdom, and relationship goals. and where are you today versus where you were yesterday, because that is something that you can measure and is identifiable and quantifiable.
We teach them to seek progress, not perfection. Progress is what they're looking for, and to focus on their own results. And Greg's favorite word
is the word yet. When we were growing up, you had a fixed mindset, but with Carol Dweck's book and the studies that have gone on, and with what's available with YouTube and all that exists in the world today, we've talked about some of the negative aspects of social media, but in terms of the information that is available, if you want to go learn something, it is tremendous. My favorite word is the word yet. I don't know because I haven't learned it yet, but I will figure it out. And so I think it's very important to teach kids that they can figure it out, and teach them to say it's okay that you don't know. You can go ask somebody for help. And then that's how you continue to grow, and you have a growth mindset. So that's very important.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a ton of information out there, and that's a huge blessing. But again, I just think it's great the work that you guys are doing, because information and knowing something, right, can sometimes feel a lot different when you're trying to apply it.
Absolutely.
So I love the structure that you've established.
Last thing, do you want to share a little bit about what college admissions advisors over your 20 years, what they're really looking for?
Yes, because that's why one of the reasons we started doing this too. Of course, they're always looking for academic success, the GPA, standardized tests, quality in the curriculum. So if you're college bound, you want to have all those things high. And then extracurricular accomplishments. They're looking for in-depth community projects, not just filling the hours that your school requires for community service. And they want to see leadership positions and commitment to an activity long-term. And they love entrepreneurial spirit in this extracurricular activity. We had some guys during COVID who lived in a neighborhood, and they started to collect food. They sent out a flyer to collect food for those kids who were not being fed, or usually fed through the school program, at least their breakfast. And so they started to collect food, and they took it to the service that would deliver that to the students, and the whole neighborhood was in on it. It's like, yes, let's do it. But they just thought of it and
developed a website.
Yes, they developed a website, and they did the same thing during Thanksgiving for the same people. So that's great stuff. But the third thing that admissions officers are looking for in their students is that sense of self-awareness and a plan for the future. They want students who know who they are and know where they're going. And that's what we help them do. They want to hear about their values and their purpose and their strengths and their weaknesses, and what they're doing about those things and what plan they have, because they want their students to come to that college, hit the ground running, contribute positively to the campus environment, the community environment, and then to go off with success after graduation and reflect well on their universities and come back and mentor other students. That's what they're looking for.
Thank you for that. That's so important. Every student needs to know you. I'm just thinking to myself, wow, I would have loved to have had this, when I was a teenager. Obviously everything turned out okay, but it's just, I just think what you're doing is priceless, really. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and we'll be sure to include all of your information in our show notes for the listeners. Wonderful. To get in touch with you. And I just really appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. It's great to be with you.
Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can achieve a fulfilled life, live your purpose, and make an impact as a mission-driven leader, visit me at jenniferspore.com. And while you're there, be sure to join Awaken on Purpose, the community, to connect, collaborate, and grow in business and life with others who are like-minded.